Tonight, multiple people hospitalised after a random stabbing rampage across Melbourne. More than 170 Boeing planes grounded after a terrifying mid-air incident. The country cross-dresses saving historic halls with a fabulous fundraiser. And the medical maestros performing an operation of note. Good evening, Candice Prosser with South Australia's ABC News. A string of stabbings across Melbourne has left several people badly hurt and a woman in hospital with life-threatening injuries. Police say 5 people were stabbed in 4 separate and random attacks in a 3-hour period.
A normal Saturday night turns into a random stabbing spree across Melbourne. In one incident, security footage captures the suspect in a green hoodie approaching a male bystander before stabbing him in the leg.
It's pretty terrifying, to think that something like a random attack like that as well, so close to home.
When I arrived this morning to open up, there was all this blood on the pavement.
Victoria Police labelling the events as extremely concerning.
On each occasion, the victims were minding their own business. They wouldn't have even known that they were about to be attacked.
Police say a 31-year-old Melton man allegedly stabbed 5 people in 4 separate locations across Melbourne, all within 3 hours of each other. One of the victims, a 31-year-old woman, sustained life-threatening injuries. She's in a serious but stable condition in hospital. The others suffered knife injuries to their legs and torsos. The attacker was finally caught by police in South Yarra just after 1 o'clock this morning. He was found with a bag of sharp weapons.
1:30 last night, I was woken up by a loud screaming noise from a male voice. Someone was screaming, "Stand still, put your hands by your side."
Police say it was concerning that the man used public transport to get to each location, but onboard CCTV was used to locate him. And although terrorism has been ruled out, his motive for the alleged offending is still unknown.
Our brothers with the PSOs as well, without the support that we had from them riding the train network, I guess this could potentially be resulting in me appealing for a manhunt.
The 31-year-old man was charged this afternoon with 14 separate assault-related charges and 1 charge of possessing a controlled weapon. He's been remanded in custody and will face court tomorrow. Courtney Withers, ABC News, Melbourne.
US authorities have grounded more than 170 Boeing planes after a horrifying accident on an Alaska Airlines jet when part of an aircraft blew off during a flight. No one was injured in the emergency landing, but the American Transportation Board says it could have been tragic if more people had been seated next to the cabin panel that blew out. There are no Boeing 737 MAX 9 aircraft flying in Australia, but other foreign airlines are inspecting their fleets.
This is why more than 170 planes have been grounded in the United States. A gaping hole in the aircraft as part of the fuselage is blown out of this Alaskan Airlines jet just after takeoff from Portland.
We need everyone to remain seated with their seat right now.
The pilot recorded speaking to air traffic control.
Yes, we are emergency. We are depressurized. We do need to return back.
There was thankfully no one seated near the window.
Passengers were terrified.
It was a trip from hell.
There was a kid in that row who his shirt was sucked off him and out of the plane, and his mother was holding on to him to make sure he didn't go with it.
I look up and the oxygen masks were hanging from the ceiling. And then I look to my left and there's this huge chunk, part of the airplane, just like missing.
The plane was forced into an emergency landing, but remarkably, all 177 people on board survived, with no major injuries reported. But it could have been deadly, and the US regulator has ordered 171 of the Boeing 737 MAX 9s to be grounded and tested before they fly again.
One of the questions here for the investigators is going to be, was that a mechanical failure or was that some failure in maintenance?
Had the aircraft been at cruising altitude, maybe more passengers would have unbuckled their belt, and then certainly there would have been a risk of loss of life with passengers potentially able to be sucked out of the aircraft.
It's a new blow for Boeing's MAX family of jets. The entire fleet was grounded in 2019 for 20 months after 2 air disasters of the MAX 8 model. In Indonesia, a Lion airplane crashed, killing 189 people. Then, an Ethiopian Airlines plane plunged into the ground minutes after takeoff. All 157 on board died. The latest incident could prove costly for Boeing, which has struggled under huge amounts of debt in recent years. Carrington Clark, ABC News, Washington.
A woman in her 90s has been found alive under rubble almost a week after a devastating earthquake struck Japan. It's a rare story of hope for the country. More than 120 people have been confirmed dead and 200 are still missing as the weather now makes it more difficult for rescuers.
They call it miraculous. 5 days after the earthquake hit central Japan, rescuers save a woman in her 90s. She was pulled alive from her collapsed home on the coast of Noto Peninsula. Hope has been fading for most, but there have been a number of people saved in recent days. In this one, another elderly woman is pulled to safety after a tricky operation. The workers called to her, assuring her she was now okay. Here in Wajima, the Japanese army has swung into action on the ground. These villages were cut off by landslides and their roads split after the magnitude 7.6 quake struck on New Year's Day. The area 300 kilometres northwest of Tokyo has been one of the hardest hit. 30 people were safely evacuated and more are waiting to leave. There are still around 200 people unaccounted for. This man explains the layout of his collapsed house to the search team. He believes his wife is trapped inside. Thousands of homes have been damaged or destroyed. This family is picking through the rubble for anything they can salvage. Survivors are making do, but this peninsula community also copped a 2-metre high tsunami, and elderly residents fear they'll never get back to their own homes.
We'll have to stay at a shelter with everyone else for about 3 months or more, and then for 2 or 3 years we'll live in temporary accommodation. And I'm already over 80.
The weather isn't helping rescue and aid efforts. There's been heavy rain on and off and now hail and snow, prompting fears of further landslides, which will make it even harder to reach isolated communities. Kathleen Calderwood, ABC News, Wajima.
The people of Bangladesh are voting in an election today that's been labelled a sham. The country's main opposition has boycotted the poll after a crackdown on protesters, and some politicians have disappeared. The government has been accused of a brutal campaign against dissenters, but Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is on the brink of a 4th term in office. South Asia correspondent Meghna Bali reports from Dhaka.
Bangladesh is off to the polls, but the result seems a foregone conclusion.
Our Prime Minister will be re-elected again. Even a storm can't stop her.
There's one notable thing missing: an opposition.
This is a one-sided election. You can't clap with one hand.
A boycott of the election by the government's main opposition all but guarantees another sweep to power for Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. For decades, politics in the country has been dominated by rival dynasties, led by Prime Minister Hasina and former PM Khaleda Zia. Zia's currently on house arrest, fighting what she says are trumped-up corruption charges.
People don't accept authoritarian regimes. That's what exactly this government is.
The opposition BNP claims the government has taken control of the Electoral Commission, so it's decided to opt out, and so-called independent candidates have joined the fray.
If I win the seat, I will work for the welfare of the people.
But the opposition claims candidates like Ms Tuhi are dummies intended to legitimise a one-party contest. And it doesn't help that the independent is still a local member of the ruling party.
I'm still a part of the Awami League. I'm contesting and the party doesn't have any issues.
Tensions are escalating here in the city's capital. Just hours before the start of a two-day strike designed to boycott the elections, a train was set on fire here, killing 4 people. Authorities say the incident was designed to intimidate voters ahead of the election, but have stopped short of naming those responsible.
Violent protests have also intensified, with almost 10,000 opposition activists arrested since late October, and some politicians going missing. But the ruling party believes the elections are free and fair.
There are no restrictions to participate in elections. There is no need to boycott or withdraw.
Despite the assurances, there are no prizes for guessing the winner of this contest. Meghna Bali, ABC News, Dhaka.
Australia's largest rail freight operator is pushing for a national summit on level crossing safety after 2 of its workers were killed in a train and truck collision near South Australia's border with New South Wales. Pacific National says urgent measures are needed to prevent more deaths at rail crossings across the country.
This New Year's Eve level crash has sparked mounting calls for improved safety at regional level crossings.
This has been an issue for a long time, and like everyone involved with this tragic accident, there's been periods of anger for myself and our team as well.
Mick Warren and Kevin Baker were killed when a truck collided with the freight train they were driving at a level crossing on the Barrier Highway. The truck driver has since been charged. Rail freight company Pacific National, where the train drivers worked, is urging federal and state governments and industry groups to hold a national supply chain forum and discuss immediate actions to prevent further fatalities. This includes awareness campaigns to improve road user behaviour around freight trains and better infrastructure. The level crossing where the accident occurred is looked after by the federal government. There are around 23,000 across Australia.
It's not going to be a single solution for every level crossing. We have to assess them, make sure that we understand the risks that are in place for every one of them and put appropriate measures in place.
The federal government says it's already taking action. Its first budget includes just over $180 million to improve level crossing safety in regional areas.
We're certainly happy to engage with operators like Pacific National and, of course, work with the Australian government. We already have a lot of work underway.
We owe it to those families, the families of Mick and Kevin, to learn as much as we can from this event.
The Australian Transport Safety Bureau is investigating the New Year's Eve crash and looking at that particular level crossing. Anisha Pilarisetti, ABC News.
Police are investigating a brawl at the Summer Nats Festival in Canberra involving patrons and some people wearing crowd safety vests. The incident happened yesterday afternoon and videos have spread across social media. Organisers are stressing it's just one blip on an otherwise successful festival which wrapped up today.
Not what you'd expect to hear from crowd control. It seemed to start with this punch. Some patrons threw cans and bottles and the crowd readied for a fight. Later on, a colleague joins the man in the red hat. Festival goers watch on, capturing the brawl from multiple angles. Moments later, another crowd safety officer kicks a man lying on the ground. Security at the festival were privately contracted and the ABC has contacted the company for comment. Police are yet to lay any charges. Festival organisers are also investigating.
It's our responsibility to make sure that everyone that comes here gets to go home safe and happy. When that doesn't happen, we also need to look at that really carefully too.
But they're keen to stress it was an isolated incident.
We had a plan that we'd worked out really carefully all year. Should something like that happen, we implemented it and resolve the issue.
The brawl threatened to overshadow the final day of Summer Nats. Queenslander Joe Bauer was named the festival's grand champion for his restoration of a 1968 Dodge Charger he brought out from Texas.
Yeah, unveiled here on Thursday, and to take out People's Choice and grand champion, man, it's just unbelievable for me.
And last night, crowd favourite Andrew Lynch took out the Burnout competition. A sight, sound and smell Canberrans can again look forward to this time next year. Patrick Bell, ABC News, Canberra.
The federal government has promised to make the NDIS more humane and less bureaucratic as part of its plans to reboot the scheme. For one family, that pledge can't come soon enough. They're upset and confused after their son was denied something they say is essential. Fiona Blackwood explains.
James Gittis wears a secret weapon.
It's getting tight. Put it down.
It's called a second skin, and it's custom made to provide stability for James, who has low muscle tone and hypermobility, among other conditions.
Prior to his suit, James didn't go to school full time. He was part-time just because managing his fatigue was so incredibly challenging for him.
The NDIS has funded the last 2 suits which James has grown out of. But it's rejected an application for just over $3,000 for his next suit.
So without it, he can't do judo, and judo is hands down his life.
It's a decision the family is not prepared to accept.
There's lots of calls, lots of emails. At this stage, we've actually personally committed to pay for it because we know that it's so important for James to have it. However, it shouldn't come to this.
A spokesman for the NDIA says it will work with James's family and support them to provide additional information it may need to consider their request. It comes as the federal government promises to make the NDIS less bureaucratic.
We've been advocating for people to be able to self-manage their plans a lot more and to be able to use their funding in an appropriate way to buy the essential equipment that they need.
While changes to the NDIS will take time, James is ready to tackle the challenges which come his way. Fiona Blackwood, ABC News.
The Greek Orthodox blessing of the waters was celebrated in Adelaide today, despite heavy rainfall delaying some ceremonies. Hundreds gathered at the seaside suburbs for the centuries-old tradition commemorating the baptism of Jesus in the Jordan River. In Glenelg, the poor weather did not deter more than 50 swimmers from racing to retrieve a wooden crucifix from the sea. The day is a significant one in the Greek Orthodox calendar and is traditionally celebrated with food and music. Historic halls around regional South Australia are costing small councils and community organisations thousands of dollars every year in maintenance. 2 talented regional residents have come up with a unique way to raise funds to keep the halls open.
Spectacular gowns, wigs and sky-high heels are key ingredients to a fundraising mission with a difference.
If you've got big lashes.
Every Friday night, Talawi resident Derek Morris transforms into drag persona Miss I'm a Treat.
What about? Went to a drag show because I was always a little gay boy. Went to a gay bar in the city and seen these fabulous drag queens looking all glamorous and absolutely gorgeous and just wanted to be one of them. Yeah. Start with just the eyes.
Miss I'm a Treat has joined forces with borough resident Kim Apostolides to perform in country town halls through the mid-north.
My main aim is living here in the country was actually to promote that you know you can be different.
Kim is a member of 10 community committees and is a passionate volunteer. After he met Derek, aka Miss I'm a Treat, they formed the St Just Sisters, a drag duo with a purpose.
Beautiful. Thank you.
In the state's mid-north, old town halls like this one here in Burra are some of the last places regional communities can enjoy the glitz and glamour of the performing arts. However, many are struggling with high maintenance costs as buildings age. The St Just Sisters raise money through their drag performances to keep spaces like this alive.
To raise funds for the communities is a great thing.
The St Just Sisters have raised thousands of dollars for the Mount Bryan Soldiers Memorial Hall this year, and funds raised at their performance in Burra will support the Town Hall and other community organisations. All the while, they get to share their queer culture and broaden people's horizons.
For me, it's about getting people to for acceptance and diversity. Accept us, we're all different. Takes all sorts to make a world.
Using drag performance to keep regional culture alive. Isabella Carboni, ABC News, Borough.
Australia has its first men's player inside the world's top 10 in 17 years after Alex de Minaur fought back from a set down to defeat Alexander Zverev at the United Cup. The 24-year-old will head to Melbourne Park, hoping for a deep run at his home Grand Slam.
3 straight top 10 ranked opponents, 3 straight wins for the Demon.
And there it is. De Minaur does it for Australia.
The 24-year-old dropped the first set against Germany's world number 7, Alexander Zverev, but in trademark fashion, never lost hope.
He's lifted, he's asking the crowd to lift with him.
The win propels him into the top 10 ahead of next week's Australian Open, his best result, the 4th round.
It's what I worked so hard for. It's another milestone, but it doesn't finish there. Job's not done.
His United Cup coach and mentor, Leighton Hewitt, was the last Aussie man to hold a place inside the world's top 10 back in July 2006.
I see all the reasons why I'm not going to be a good player, I'm not going to make it, I'm not going to improve, and I saw it in the back of my head and I used it as motivation.
In Brisbane, it was one-way traffic in the women's final.
Arena Rybakina putting on a clinic.
Arena Sabalenka had won 15 straight matches in Australia, including last year's Grand Slam title.
Well, Sabalenka had started walking to the chair. She'd given up on that point.
But it took her 9 games today to even get on the board.
Sabalenka breaks.
24-year-old Rybakina sought revenge for last year's Oz Open final loss in their head-to-head battle.
A masterclass. Elena Rybakina, the Brisbane International champion.
I really enjoy playing you, no matter the result. As I said, we always push each other, which is great, I think.
Jessica Stewart, ABC News.
Poland has an early lead of Germany in the final of tennis's United Cup after Iga Swiatek stormed past Angelika Kerber in straight sets. The world number 1 started strongly against Kerber to take the opening set of the women's rubber 6-3. Swiatek then produced some remarkable tennis in the second to claim the set 6-love. Hubert Zurkacz and Alexander Zverev are facing off in the men's rubber. Luke Plapp and Ruby Roseman Gannon have claimed gold in the men's and women's road races at the National Road Cycling Championships in Buninyong, just outside Ballarat. The starting line observed a moment of silence before the women's race as riders honoured 2-time Olympian Melissa Hoskins, who was killed on December 30. Her husband has been charged following the incident. Roseman Gannon took out the win in a tight finish, backing up her victory in the Criterium on Friday. Loretta Hansen came in second and Alexandra Manley was third in the 104-kilometre race. Meanwhile, teammates Luke Plapp and Chris Harper sailed to the finish line together, well ahead of the rest of the field in the 185-kilometre men's race. Harper sacrificed his chance at winning to hand his teammate a 3rd consecutive title. The Adelaide 36ers have pulled off a startling comeback in the NBL, upsetting ladder leaders Melbourne United by 4 points in front of a record crowd at the Adelaide Entertainment Centre. Dejan Vasiljevic started strongly for the 36ers and was named Player of the Game after finishing with a season-high 30 points. Teammate Trey Kell's 24 points and 10 rebounds were crucial for Adelaide, helping them to hold off a fast-finishing Melbourne side in the final quarter to win 100 points to 96. The win was just the 6th this season for the 36ers. They remain last in the standings. United stay on top with 15 wins.
New year, new team, I guess. You know, we have 10 games left, 9 now, but we had to come in full of energy. Obviously, it's the 25-year anniversary for the championship, and we just had to come in full of energy. And yeah, I came to hoop, man. I love my boys, and that's all we had to do.
The high-pressure setting of a hospital ward can feel far away from a concert hall, but a group of Australian medical professionals is bringing the two worlds together. Corpus Medicorum is a group of doctors, nurses and others from various hospitals who make music and raise money for research.
Playing music has been a lifelong passion for Philip Antipa. Today he's in rehearsal for an upcoming orchestral gala in Melbourne. But Philip is not only a skilled musician. He's also the head of thoracic surgery at the Royal Melbourne Hospital and Peter MacCallum Cancer Centre. 20 years ago, the surgeon founded Corpus Medicorum, an orchestra made up of health workers.
We have nurses and physiotherapists and dentists and medical scientists and PhD students.
Corpus Medicorum is one of a handful of medical orchestras around the world and is helping health workers cope with the gruelling demands of their profession.
There's no capacity to think about, oh, I wonder how the hospital's going, or I wonder how that patient's going. It's actually this set-aside period of time where I'm just in the music.
It can be quite nerve-wracking to play a solo in a concert, but at least no one's going to die if you miss a note.
Sonia Baldock played music professionally before going back to university to study intensive care nursing. She not only plays with the orchestra, but sometimes takes her violin to work.
We know that physiologically it can bring your heart rate down, so anyone who's stressed, whether that be staff, patients, family members, we know that that sense of peace comes from dropping that heart rate down.
Corpus Medicorum performs regularly in Melbourne and at venues around the world. Their performances have raised more than $1 million for lung cancer research and other projects over the past 2 decades.
When we're all in the orchestra together, we might be a bunch of medical professionals, but we're experiencing this as a bunch of music lovers.
It's intoxicating, it's addictive, it's a really an incredible thing to be part of.
Healing hearts and saving lives. Sasha Payne, ABC News, Melbourne.
Flash flooding continued in parts of South Australia today as more thunderstorms rolled in. People scrambled to find cover as the sunny skies were replaced with storm clouds, surprising beachgoers along Adelaide's coast. The unseasonal heavy downpour led to some events being cancelled, including the Beach Accessibility Day at Glenelg. Trees and branches fell across the city, some downing power lines, and the Barrier Highway has now reopened between Broken Hill and Peterborough, with police urging drivers to take care as floodwaters recede. And let's take a detailed look at the weather now, but first tonight's photo, thanks to Anne Kirk. It was taken at Stokes Bay on Kangaroo Island. It remained warm overnight across Adelaide. In the city, the low was 23 degrees, and today's top of 26 came at 10 o'clock this morning. There were showers and storms today about central and eastern districts, and conditions remained humid right across the state. It reached 32 in Cooper Pedy. Cloud moving across the country is associated with troughs that are responsible for the heavy rain we've had over the past few days. That's now heading east and driving heavy showers and storms over the tropical north, Queensland, central New South Wales and eastern Victoria. The troughs will maintain heat across the interior and west. Storms and wet weather across the top end and down the eastern cities and major centres. Dry and hot for Alice Springs with 36, 35 for Perth. Back home, fine and warm to hot across the north tomorrow, with tops in the major centres ranging from 22 in Ceduna to 34 in Oodnadatta. Showers about the southern agricultural area will contract to the coast during the morning, and showers and storms about the eastern border will clear during the morning, 26 for Keith. There is a severe thunderstorm warning for damaging winds, large hailstones and heavy rainfall for parts of Flinders, Riverland, the Northeast Pastoral and Murraylands districts, and a downy mildew advice remains in place for these forecast districts. A fine day for the city tomorrow with 25 degrees down to 17 overnight. Showers and 22 for Murray Bridge. On the waters, southerly winds to 25 knots with seas to 1.5 metres around midday. The sun will rise around 6:10 and set soon after 8:30. Staying fine and getting warmer as the week moves on, 30 on Thursday, climbing to 34 degrees on Friday, with 29 degrees for this time next week. That's the latest from your South Australian news team. Thanks for your company. Have a great night.